You wake up on a Wednesday. No alarm, no rush, no manager waiting for an explanation. The sunlight falls across the kitchen floor, exactly the way it did yesterday. You make coffee, you sit by the window, your phone vibrates. Dividend payment received, $118.43. You look at it for a moment, not because of the amount, because of what it means. Nobody paid you, no customer, no boss, no overtime, no side hustle. You were asleep. The money arrived anyway. 5 years earlier, that would have sounded ridiculous. Back then, every dollar in your life belonged to somebody before it belonged to you. Your employer controlled it. Your schedule controlled it. Your alarm clock controlled it. Now something else is creating income. Ownership. And it starts with a number much smaller than most people think. Not $1 million. Not even close. Just $10,000. Level 1. $10,000. At 25, most people around you are upgrading their lifestyle. New phones, new shoes, weekend trips, monthly payments disguised as rewards. You choose something far less exciting. You save. A little from every paycheck. A little from every bonus. A little from every sacrifice nobody sees. Until one day your account reaches 5 digits. $10,000. Not enough to impress anyone, but enough to make a decision. You invest it into a simple dividend ETF. Nothing flashy, nothing exciting. Just a boring fund paying roughly 4%. A few months later, the first dividend arrives. $33. That's it. $33. Most people would laugh. Some would quit immediately, because $33 feels insignificant. But they're looking at the wrong thing. The amount isn't what matters. The source does. For the first time in your life, money appeared without you selling an hour of your time. No meeting created it. No commute created it. No manager approved it. Ownership created it. And that changes something inside you. Not financially, psychologically. The next day, a coworker notices the notification. He laughs. $30? That's nothing. You smile. Not because he's wrong, because you used to think exactly the same way. Nobody respects passive income when it's small. Everyone respects it when it's large. But the first dollar is the hardest one to earn. That night you reinvest the dividend. Not because it changes your life, because it changes your direction, and direction matters more than speed. 3 years pass. Nothing dramatic happens. No overnight success. No lucky break. Just consistency. One contribution after another. One reinvestment after another. Now the account sits at $50,000. The portfolio is still boring. The chart still looks slow. But the dividends now produce about $2,000 per year. Enough to pay your phone bill, your internet, your utilities. One Sunday afternoon you're paying bills when a realization hits. The money isn't coming from your paycheck anymore. Your shares are paying for part of your life. Tiny pieces of businesses you've never visited are working while you're sitting at home. And for the first time, ownership feels real. That same week your cousin shows up in a brand new luxury SUV. The family loves it. Photos, compliments, celebration. Everyone talks about the car. Nobody talks about the payment. Nobody talks about the interest. Nobody talks about the money quietly leaving his future. On the drive home, you realize something. Most people spend money to look wealthy. A small number spend money to become wealthy. The difference isn't visible today, but give it enough time, and it becomes impossible to hide. The first lesson of dividend investing is simple. The first payment isn't income. It's proof. When money starts working harder than you do. Level 2, $100,000. By 31, the number reaches 6 figures. $100,000 invested. Years ago, that sounded like something only rich people had. Now it's sitting quietly in your account. Not because you found a secret, not because you got lucky, because you stayed consistent longer than most people stay interested. The portfolio now produces roughly $4,000 a year, about $333 every month. Not enough to replace your paycheck, but enough to replace something else, your groceries. One Saturday morning, you're pushing a cart through a grocery store when the realization hits. The fruit, the vegetables, the coffee, the milk, your investments are paying for all of it. You're no longer buying food entirely with labor. Part of it is being funded by ownership, and ownership feels different. It feels quiet, reliable, almost invisible. Then an old friend calls. He found a stock yielding 14%. 14%. He says it's the opportunity of a lifetime. He sends charts, predictions, promises. For a moment, the numbers look tempting. Then you look closer. The yield is high because the business is falling apart. The stock price has been collapsing for years. The dividend isn't a reward, it's bait. That's when you learn one of the most important lessons in investing. Beginners chase yield. Experienced investors chase durability. Anyone can promise a huge payout. The question is whether they can keep paying it. You close the chart, keep your boring ETF, and move on. 6 months later, the dividend gets cut. The stock drops again. Your friends' messages stop. Your dividends continue. Nothing exciting happened. And that's exactly why it worked. Because successful investing usually feels boring while it's succeeding. Level 3. $250,000. By $35,000, the portfolio reaches $250,000. $250,000. Now the income is roughly $10,000 per year. More than $800 every month. The first time you truly understand what that means, you're sitting in traffic. Tuesday morning. The highway is frozen. A luxury SUV sits beside you. The driver is shouting into his phone. Stressed, angry, late. You glance down at your own dashboard. Your car isn't impressive. Most people ask, "Can I afford this?" Wealthy people eventually ask, "What will this cost me over the next 10 years?" And those are very different questions. Level 4. $500,000. By 38, the portfolio crosses another milestone. $500,000. $500,000 invested. This is where the conversation changes. Until now, dividends have been helpful. Now they're becoming powerful. The portfolio generates roughly $20,000 per year. Almost $1,700 every month. Every month. Whether you work or not. Whether you're motivated or not. Whether you're having a good week or a terrible one. The money keeps arriving. For the first time, employment and survival begin separating from each other. Not completely, but noticeably. And most people never experience that feeling. You discover it on a Friday afternoon. The office is quiet. Everyone is mentally gone for the weekend. Then your manager walks over. A project is behind schedule. A client is upset. He needs someone to stay late. 5 years ago, you would have said yes immediately. Not because you wanted to, because you needed to. Need creates obedience. This time something different happens. You pause. Only for a few seconds. But the pause matters. Because for the first time, fear isn't making the decision. You realize something. You could survive without this job. Not forever. Not comfortably. But you could survive. The portfolio now covers a meaningful portion of your life. The floor beneath you is no longer resting entirely on your employer. And once people feel that floor, they stand differently. You still stay late. You still finish the project. But the decision feels different. The yes is voluntary, not compulsory. That's when you understand something most people miss. Freedom doesn't begin when you quit your job. Freedom begins when you realize you don't have to stay. And that realization is worth far more than the dividend itself. The fifth lesson is simple. $500,000 doesn't buy freedom. It buys leverage. And leverage changes every conversation. Level 5. $1 million. You are 41. $1 million invested. For years it felt impossible. Then one evening you open your account and see it. $1 million. No fireworks. No celebration. Just a number. The next morning looks exactly the same. Same coffee. Same traffic. Same life. But something underneath your life has changed. The portfolio now generates roughly $40,000 every year. A full salary. Not from work. From ownership. One night you sit at the kitchen table and ask yourself a question. What if you stopped working? For the first time, the answer is real. You think about the younger version of yourself. The one who checked his bank balance every morning. The one who stayed in jobs he hated because he had no alternative. That version of you wouldn't recognize this life. Not because of luxury, because of choice. Choice is the real dividend. Money is just the mechanism. The sixth rule. At $1 million invested, dividends stop paying your bills. They start paying for your independence. Level 6, $1.5 million. You are 44. The portfolio reaches $1.5 million. The number retirement calculators always talked about. The number that once belonged to other people. Now it belongs to you. The portfolio produces roughly $60,000 every year. Without selling shares, without shrinking the account. Just from income. One morning you're drinking coffee by the window when you see a headline. Most Americans believe they need around $1.5 million to retire comfortably. You read it twice, because you're already there. And suddenly you're not thinking about the future. You're thinking about the 25-year-old version of yourself, the one with $10,000, the one who kept reinvesting, the one who stayed patient while everyone else wanted results immediately. Nobody remembers those choices. The world notices outcomes. It rarely notices discipline. But discipline is where outcomes come from. The seventh rule. Wealth isn't built by earning more than everyone else. It's built by staying patient longer than everyone else. The email. The next Monday feels different, not dramatic. Different. You sit at your desk, open your laptop, check your calendar. Meetings, projects, deadlines. The same routine you've repeated for years, but now it feels optional. Your boss sends a message. Can we talk this afternoon? 5 ordinary words. But today, they land differently. Because for the first time, your livelihood isn't attached to the conversation. At lunch, you walk to a nearby park. You watch people rushing past, talking on phones, checking notifications, carrying stress you can see from across the sidewalk. You remember being that person, the version of you who thought freedom belonged only to rich people. It doesn't. Freedom belongs to prepared people. You pull out your phone, open your email, and begin typing. A short message, professional, respectful, a thank you, a notice, an ending. You read it once, then twice, then press send. That's it. No speech, no fireworks, just a button. The decision took 3 seconds. The preparation took 19 years. The real dividend. People think dividend investing is about cash flow. It isn't. Cash flow is only the visible part. The real dividend is control. Control over your mornings. Control over your calendar. Control over your time. At $10,000 invested, the dividend paid for subscriptions. At $50,000, it paid for bills. At $100,000, it paid for groceries. At $250,000, it paid for transportation. At $500,000, it gave you leverage. At $1 million, it gave you independence. At $1.5 million, it gives you something even more valuable. Permission. Permission to stop. Permission to leave. Permission to choose. Most people spend their lives renting their time. You spent years buying yours back. One share at a time. One dividend at a time. One reinvestment at a time. And eventually something remarkable happened. The income became permanent, while the work became optional. Ending somewhere right now, someone is opening their first investment account. Maybe they have $10,000. Maybe less. Maybe more. They're looking at the numbers and feeling disappointed, the same way you once did. But they're looking at the wrong thing. Because the goal was never the first dividend. The goal was freedom. And freedom arrives slowly. One contribution at a time. One reinvestment at a time. 1 year of patience at a time. Then one day you wake up. No alarm. No urgency. No anxiety. You make coffee. You sit by the window. Your phone vibrates. A dividend payment arrives. You glance at it. Then look away. Because the amount no longer matters. The freedom does. You were never building a portfolio. You were building ownership of your own life. And now, you own your mornings forever.